But every war comes at a cost, and the war in Ukraine came with a hefty price tag. Do you know how much? How much did the global economy suffer in 2022? How much loss did this war inflict on the world? A whopping $1.6 trillion. That was the loss. Or $1.6 trillion in 2022 alone. That's according to the German Economic Institute. The deepest impact was on the West. They lost 2/3 of their global production. No one has suffered more than Europe in this war. The war upended the region. In November, the European Commission shared a grim prediction. And I have it with me. This is what it says. Amid elevated uncertainty, high energy price pressures, erosion of households' purchasing power, a weaker external environment, and tighter financing conditions are expected to tip the EU, the euro area, and most member states into recession. So a recession seems certain. Germany alone will suffer a loss of $171 billion. That's around 4% of Germany's GDP. Cutting off energy from Russia is inflicting a heavy cost on them. The bills for businesses are going up. This year, the German industry will pay 40% more for energy. And what happens if the war continues? If Russia and Ukraine keep fighting this year, what happens then? The losses for the global economy could double. Last year, the OECD released a report. The OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They released a report. And this is an intergovernmental organization. 38 countries are members of this group. And how much, in terms of losses, did the OECD predict from the war? $2.8 trillion. Throughout 2022, the world felt the impact of the war. Global supply chains were broken, which led to shortages. The war triggered shortage of food, and inflation was quick to follow. 2022 was the year of brutal inflation. Global inflation touched almost 9%. For comparison, in 2021, it was 3.5%. Last year, it was 9%. So inflation almost tripled. What about India? The Indian economy was largely insulated from the worst impacts of this, but not completely. India's inflation rate reached almost 8% in April 2022. In recent weeks, inflation has dropped below the 7% point, which is a positive sign. What about the markets? Well, they seesawed throughout last year. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February, India's Sensex crashed by 2,700 points, the fourth worst fall. The Nifty plunged 815 points. It was the worst fall since March 2020, when the pandemic broke out. By November, the markets were touching fresh highs and breaking records, again a sign of confidence. But the war is not over yet, remember. 2022 proved that we do not live in isolation. We cannot remain disconnected from what's happening in the world, unimpacted. What happens in the world affects all of us, and we can only hope that the worst is behind us.